Hi, everybody. Happy Thursday. It's a wonderful fall day. Just looking outside, looks like most of the leaves are off the trees, which is a good sign. Getting close to Christmas. Hope everybody will have a wonderful holiday. Hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. I'm very happy that Candace Suarez is with us today. She's our director of student counseling at Optima Med, and Annie Tulkin from Maryland has come in to join us. No, she didn't drive, but she's here with us today, and we're going to talk more with her about her company, Accessible College. I'd like to, first remind everybody about Optima Med. We are a higher education advisory firm here in the Richmond area. We do operate nationally. So we like to say, no matter who they are or where they are, we can help any child, any student find a way forward. No matter what their circumstances. And that's, I think, really a good segue into our conversation with Annie, because one of the things that we like to do at Optima Med is to have partners, professional partners who deal with areas that we're not really expert in. So, for example, tutoring, SAT and ACT tutoring, or, autism placement. Well, in this case, Annie is the founder and the director of Accessible College, which is, well, I'm not going to steal her thunder. I'm going to let her tell you what Accessible College is all about. But I think we really would like to start with the big question, Annie. Why did you start Accessible College?
Sure. And that's a great question, Tom. And I'm so happy that you guys invited me to be a part of this conversation today. So Accessible College provides college transition support for students with physical disabilities and health conditions. And so health conditions is kind of a broad term. It could be things like Crohn's disease or lupus or autoimmune disorders, and it also includes mental health conditions as well. And so I started Accessible College because for 6 years, I was the Associate Director of the Academic Resource Center at Georgetown University, and that's Georgetown's Disability Support Office. And so I was kind of on the ground or behind the desk, connecting with students who were, had health conditions, had physical disabilities, and who were Georgetown students who were coming into college really underprepared for that transition. And by underprepared, I mean they didn't really understand the college accommodations process. They didn't really know what types of accommodations they might need in the college setting and how that might be different from the high school setting. And many of the students I worked with weren't really prepared for the self-advocacy skills that they would need to have in order to effectively communicate with their professors and sometimes with their roommates or peers too about their needs. And I think part of that is because a lot of times in the high school setting, parents are very involved. But once the student transitions to college, the student has to be able to communicate and request their own accommodations and go through the disability support process by themselves. And because of FERPA, the Federal Educational Rights and Privacy Act, parents really aren't a part of that process. And that catches a lot of parents off guard. But that's why I started Accessible College, because I realized that there were so many students with physical disabilities and health conditions who needed more support and guidance in that transition prior to entering college. So that's why I did it. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that I'm sure the self-advocacy piece is huge because, as you said, parents are used to kind of creating a bubble around their kids and protecting them. And at some point, they need to go off on their own. So I think, talk a little bit about how you prepare them and support them in that process.
Sure. So, we work with students starting in 9th grade through graduate school. And sometimes people are like, surprised, 9th grade, that sounds very early. And I kind of joke, like, it's not early enough. Like the earlier, the better that we can get ready and start building up some of those skills.
Yeah.
And
Some
that
families you're probably being invited to Sunday dinner, right? Because you're such part of the family.
well, what's interesting is that people come to us kind of at all different points in their process, right? There are some students who we start seeing like their sophomore year of high school, and there are other students who are coming to us now after being accepted early decision, and they're trying to get everything in order for when they do start college in the fall. So we accept them all wherever they're at, whatever part of that journey. But for students who we start working with earlier on, a lot of the students that we work with maybe have multiple health conditions. So they might have POTS or Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and a mental health condition like generalized anxiety disorder or depression. And so there might be some kind of coaching components that we need to work with them on in terms of getting them ready to manage their own medication independently, able to communicate with their doctors and prepare for doctor's appointments, or just even knowing who are their doctors and how would I contact them if I needed to reach them. So sort of learning some of those independent living skills as a part of this process to gain a little bit more traction and independence, so that when, you know, a year, 2 years later, when they do go off to college, that they have those skills and those things in place. So we also work with students on kind of that pre-college tour phase of thinking through, looking at their specific conditions, whether it's a physical disability or a health condition or a mental health condition, and saying, what questions do we need to be asking? You know, not just about their health needs and things like that, but also just like, what campus culture are they looking for? That kind of thing too. What supports are on those campuses, so that the student has a whole list of questions and kind of guidance when they start to go on those tours, or now, I guess, with COVID, going on virtual tours or exploring things independently. And that's really, really important. A lot of people don't do that prior to, you know, getting accepted to the school, and then they find out that the school doesn't have the same supports or doesn't provide accommodations in a way that is helpful to that student. And I think that's something that's important for people to know, is that accommodations vary from college to college. So, and also the care in which the accommodation is given varies from college to college. So, you know, it kind of depends on who the people are in those disability support offices and their approach to providing those accommodations. And so it's almost like students need to be interviewing those people too, just like the school is interviewing the student. And it's also important for people to know that the disability process is totally separate from the admissions process. A lot of people think if I disclose a disability during the admissions process, they're not going to accept me. So it's important for people to know that the two things never meet. So the admissions department, the disability support office, totally separate. There's no checkbox on your, you know, on your admissions letter when you're applying to college that says like, do you have a disability? So students might choose to talk about their disability in a personal narrative, or they may have to explain like some gaps in education, but there are sections for that in the application where students can say like, I had to, you know, take a year off because I was getting treatment for cancer or whatever the thing is, right? But the accommodations process is totally separate. And my other like kind of pro tip is like, don't trust everything that an admissions person tells you about the disability support process. Sorry, admissions people. Go to the disability support office to ask the disability related questions.
Yeah.
Because those people are the actual experts, and they're the ones who are going to be working with the student through those 4+ years on campus.
That best fit thing is so important. I mean, it's important for kids who don't have other issues, but you know, the disability just adds another layer to that. So important to make sure you got the right fit campus, the right culture, the right support structure. It's a lot. It's something that a lot of students, as you said, they don't even entertain that process in a lot of cases.
You know,
well, they know that they need to.
Yeah. Well, the other kind of piece of that too is that, like, you know, it may or may not be a deciding factor for the student and whether or not they want to go to that school, right? So at a certain point, the student and the family needs to determine, like, if this school doesn't meet all of these criteria that I've set up, but they have that international affairs major that I want, and I know I want to be a diplomat or whatever, like, then you have to kind of weigh out as a student, like, what am I willing to put up with, and what other support structures can I put in place, or are there other things that I need, right? And so I work with families on that component to make sure that the student, even if the school doesn't have all of the supports that that student was saying they might need, that they might, be able to get those things from outside sources or outside supports too. So, it's not a limiting factor.
So you deal with maybe special housing needs.
Yeah.
I know there's organizations that families can hire to help with daily functioning, if that's the sort of thing. So you have those kind of contacts, right?
Yeah. So housing is a whole other piece of the accommodations process that I think most people don't think about until they've been accepted, and then they get an email from Residential Living in May, and it says, if you need accommodations for housing, contact us by this date. And then people are like, whoa, wait, and a lot of times the housing department, the residential living department, works hand in hand with the disability support office. So if your student needs housing accommodation, and Tom, kind of building off that example that you gave, a student who uses a wheelchair, for example, might need an accessible dorm room. So they would actually have to request an accessible dorm room through that medical, or the accommodation, medical housing is what some schools call it, but through the accommodation process. And it's not separate housing. It's just that they hold rooms aside for students who may have different medical needs. So like if somebody needed a private bathroom because they have Crohn's disease, or if students have a mental health condition and they need a single room, or a student with a migraine disorder needs to have a single room for, recovery. They hold those rooms aside, and students have to follow the process to request those types of accommodations. But Tom, what you were talking about is a personal care attendant. So there are some students who actually need assistance with daily living activities, like getting dressed, toileting, bathing, getting their shoes on, that kind of stuff. And so there are a lot of kind of different options that students have, kind of depending on their function, right? So sometimes students will hire a full-time personal care attendant to live with them. Sometimes they'll bring a family member or a peer to live with them. And each school will have a process for allowing that. And then other people will opt to hire, a personal care attendant through a home health service, like an aid service. A lot of students opt to do that because then it means that they'll have consistent coverage because there's somebody actually providing oversight. So the home health aides have a boss and make sure that there's somebody scheduled to be with that student. But it kind of just depends on the student's needs, because if a student has less needs, they might just hire some students on campus to come and help and assist them. So I work with families to figure out like what's going to be the best option for you. And a lot of times finances kind of factor into that, because it can be really expensive to hire a full-time home health aide or a personal care attendant to be with your student. And so a lot of families haven't really thought about that prior to this time. So, so we work through those pieces to figure out what's going to be the best fit for their student. And to that end, I have a partnership right now with the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation, which is really exciting. So I wrote a transition guide specific for students with paralysis that's available now on the Reeve Foundation website. And also, we're doing a program where students with paralysis, and paralysis is a broad term, so it could be a student who's had a spinal cord injury or a student who was born with spina bifida or another type of condition that paralyzed any part of their body, can work with me for free for up to 3 hours through the Reeve Foundation. And so that's going on now. And we're going to be doing a webinar on the 16th of December, talking with people who are taking part in the project now. So yeah, if people are interested in that, they can find more information on the Reeve Foundation website.
Okay, great. Yeah, so we're running up on our time here, and we could probably keep on going for another hour, but want to be conscious of everybody's time and certainly yours, Annie. So thanks very much for. Before you leave, we need to know how we can get a hold of you.
Yeah. So people can find me on my website. It's just www.accessiblecollege.com. I'm on Facebook too. And if you're watching this, I actually liked this post. So you can see there. And I'm on Twitter as well. So a couple ways to connect with me. And if people want to email me, they can also email me at info@accessiblecollege.com. And I will set up a time to connect with them.
Wonderful, wonderful. Great, very good. And don't forget, you can reach out to OptimaMed as well. Ask at optimumedcenter.com or our website, optimumedcenter.com. So with that, we're going to let everybody get back to their sandwich or whatever you're doing right now. And we'll see you next week. Thank you so much. Again, Annie, thanks for coming. Have a great day.
Awesome. Thank you.